Imagery has been described as an experience that mimics real experience and involves using a combination of different sensory modalities in the absence of actual perception. So how does imagery actually lead to such performance benefits? Well, there's certain areas in the brain that are activated both during physical and imagined movements. This is defined as functional equivalence and is hypothesized as the means by which imagery can improve performance. It's suggested that if there is a greater similarity between the image and the actual physical movement, then it may help add more detail to the image, thus relating back to the actual movement. You'll have greater familiarity with it. And there's like a little acronym to kind of help you engage in imagery. It's called PETLEP. So P would stand for the physical aspect. So the image relevant to the physical characteristics. So I'm going to use a football example so that you guys can kind of get a better understanding of how imagery would work. So for the physical aspect, it would be a footballer would imagine being dressed in their football uniform and the football at their feet. The T for the acronym would be task. So try to imagine details relevant to the task or the attentional demands required of the task. And the football player would then avoid imagining themselves as an elite NFL player because it's not functionally equivalent to their high school level position. And then you have to focus on timing. So the most functionally equivalent approach is to imagine it in real time. And the football player would then imagine how their footwork would look before the kick. And learning, so the imagery should be continually adapted and reviewed over time to match the changing task demands and experience level of the athlete. So for the example, a novice football player progresses and masters a skill, they should adapt the imagery to reflect their improvement in the performance. And emotions, so include the same images that would be felt in the physical situation. You don't want to focus too much on like the fear or panic, any of the negative emotions, but rather the positive emotions during that experience. So this way when you get into the actual game, it'll be a positive experience that you practice on. So for the football player example, a player imagining taking a penalty kick would include feelings of confidence and adrenaline rushes. And finally, perspective. So the imagery perspective can be in first person, so through the eyes of the player, or it can be in third person, kind of like watching yourself on video. And one of the perspectives may be more advantageous depending on the situation. So for the football player example, if they were to be in first person, so internal visual imagery, it would be better for open skills that would focus with timing, so possibly tackling. And then if the football player were to look in the situation from a third person perspective, so external visual imagery, it would be better for tasks that included like positioning, so such as heading the ball or a kicking technique. So another pre-performance technique, as I mentioned before, would be relaxation. So you can engage in relaxation in various ways. You can do it through deep breathing, so sitting in a quiet place, taking in deep breaths, kind of like belly breathing. You can engage in stretching. This will help relax your muscles. And finally, you can engage in some form of meditation or mindfulness. So again, sitting in a quiet place, thinking to yourself, and you can also use self-talk. So rather than, engaging in the nerves pre-performance, you really want to talk yourself up. You can do this. I know I can make this final shot at the end of the game if it were to come down to it. I've practiced my skill. I'm confident in myself. So all of these techniques that I kind of discussed, you can use pre-performance to help control your emotions.